Greetings, ladies. Good first day and first couple of days of the patch, and also good 1st of July. What we have to go over today is a few things that you might find useful right at the start of this patch, some of the things that you might have forgotten that are worth remembering, everyone, as well as a few new additions worth talking about that will become quite relevant in just a few days. Number one, let's talk about one of the only things that is actually available in this pre-season patch of 9.1, because I don't know if you're aware at this point, but the Mega Dungeon Tazavesh is not actually available. The new raid, Sanctum of Domination, is not actually available, and the new season of Mythic Plus with its new affix, it's not actually available as well. So basically, the only thing you have been doing and the only place you have been in is Korthia, pretty much. So there is one thing worth mentioning about Korthia that might make it easier for you. Number one, Korthia currently has roughly 10,000 reputation available up for grabs, located in one-time turn-in of relics. In a way similar to what you had in the Mo, with the achievement to collect all the one-time turn-ins to Venari, right? Korthia has the same thing. Reliquary Restoration is the achievement, which requires you to gather all of the 20 one-time relics scattered around Korthia. Each and every one of these is going to give you 500 rep with the Archivist's Codex. As you might have noticed already, not that it wasn't that difficult to figure out, Archivist's Codex, similar to Venari, doesn't have a proper reputation. It has tiers from 1 to 6, so it is still similar to going to Exalted with reputation, and much like Venari and much like many other reputations, the more you unlock the tiers, the more things are going to open up. In this case, it's also the things you can do in Korthia. The higher your tier, the more things you can do, the more things you can experience. In this case, right now, for example, these are the one-time turn-in relics that you can get at rank 1, and these are the locations. You can use useful add-ons like TomTom, basically a nav sat to just tell you where to go and find these relics. After the first day, you should have been, even if you didn't know anything about Korthia, and even if you mostly just wandered around casually, you should have been able to get to rank 2 with just a few turn-ins and just killing a few rares randomly, casually. Rank 2 is going to unlock even more of these one-time turn-in relics. 4 of them, and these are the special ones that require you to purchase the keys from the Archivist Roswir, from the Archivist Codex. Basically, one of the only few things you can actually buy right now at your low reputation level are the keys, which are needed for the special chests. If you are rank 2, if you are tier 2 in Archivist Codex Reputation, you can already unlock them with the keys. Then you have the tier 3 relics that you can unlock. After this, you will be able to open up the rank 4 and the rank 5 relics. But these, they're going to take a little bit longer. It's a little bit harder to get to tier 4 and tier 5 rep right now, so you don't have to worry about these too much. At tier 4, reputation is also the tier in which you will be able to buy the Rift Repair Key that allows you to enter the alternate reality of a rift. You might have seen some of these rifts on the map already, and you try to click them and it told you that you can't because you need the key. One thing worth mentioning is that you can actually randomly loot one of these keys, one of these repair keys. So you can basically bypass the requirement of the tier 4 level of reputation and still enter the rift because you just happen to be looting a key randomly. This is essentially going to be your pseudo-horrific vision of Korthia. Don't worry, it's not nearly as hard and complicated, but it is essentially a timed event where you have about 15 minutes of time to be in there and grab some juicy stuff when it comes to reputation and research. I'm gonna leave behind the link for the guide written by Ace Versatile for this very purpose, for how to do these rifts efficiently. Beyond these one-time turn-ins, don't worry, because there isn't much else you're missing out on. Korthia after this remains on a similar level, we can say, to the Mo, where it's basically just rares. Just hunting rares once a day. If you're really bothered by reputation, if you really want to min-max your reputation, that's the only other thing left to do. Now, the other things worth mentioning are a few things related to Mythic Plus, which hasn't started yet in the new season, but one thing of the next season has already started because the teleports granted by completing a +20 in time are already in-game and already achievable. This is pretty relevant because, as you know, as soon as the next season starts, next reset, the keys are going to increase in difficulty by roughly 4 levels. So doing a +19 is the equivalent of doing a +15 next reset. So if right now you are barely, more or less, able to complete a +20, as soon as the patch launches, it's going to take you a while before you can reach +20 level again. So you can take advantage of this by doing the +20 now and getting your teleport already. The teleport is going to basically allow you to just teleport from dungeon to dungeon every single time. It does have, the teleport itself, an 8-hour cooldown, but every time you complete a Mythic Plus key, regardless of the level, the cooldown is going to reset. So once you have these teleports up and unlocked for all the dungeons, you can just teleport to one, clear it, the cooldown is going to reset, and then teleport to another and clear that one, rinse and repeat. But the real thing to mention related to Mythic Plus isn't really the teleport itself, rather the fact that we are going to have different rotation of affixes. You might have noticed this already, because this week we have bursting and storming. First of all, if you have been doing Mythic Plus, yeah, not that there is anything new, not that there is any reason to go into Mythic Plus right now, but if you have, you might have noticed the nerfed version of storming, which has now made it very easy on melee. But the thing to notice about this week is that bursting and storming did not exist up to last week. Bursting and storming are one of the new pairs of affixes that we will see in Season 2. The last week, which wasn't in-game but was up on the PTR, was bolstering and explosive, which is also a combination that didn't exist in Season 1 of Mythic Plus. So we are also going to have to experience new sets of affixes. We have gone through the first season knowing very well some pretty comfortable push weeks, which are not going to exist anymore. So Fortified, Sanguine and Quaking is going to be gone. Fortified, Sanguine and Grievous, or Fortified, Bursting and Volcanic, typically known as pretty good push weeks because the pairing of the affixes is pretty simple and it is fortified. That's gonna be gone. It does seem likely that all of the affixes are going to stay with its fortified or tyrannical pairing, meaning that bolstering and inspiring and necrotic are all going to stay paired with tyrannical, whereas things like sanguine, grievous, or volcanic and spiteful are going to be paired with fortified still, but they're going to be jumbled up. The more relevant thing to point out is that maybe the level of the pairing is going to become a little bit more annoying, but we won't have some of these outliers. Outliers like tyrannical, inspiring and necrotic, which are now not going to be paired together, or the dreaded tyrannical, bolstering and necrotic, which is also not going to happen anymore. So it is possible that given the pairings that are left for us, we already know that bolstering is going to go with explosive, and one of the only other few pairings that bolstering can have, for example, is bolstering and quaking. You know, going from bolstering and necrotic to bolstering and quaking is quite much better. The same can be said for necrotic. We know necrotic is not going to be paired with inspiring, and it's not going to be paired with bolstering anymore. So the few affixes left possible for necrotic are going to be necrotic storming, are going to be necrotic quaking, are going to be necrotic explosive. You know, these all sound pretty manageable after all. So it is also going to be interesting to see how the Mythic Plus pairings are going to shape up in the following weeks. You know, the only sad thing we can say is that because this week is fortified, it means the first week of Mythic Plus, when you want to start doing Mythic Plus, maybe you want to start to farm some of the gear, which will be capped at item level, but still maybe you want to start bringing up your score, for example. The first week is going to be on Tyrannical, because we are in Fortified right now. So we will have to deal with a first week Tyrannical, so it's probably going to be a little bit more brutal, we can say, because you will get to do with much harder bosses. But if you want to look at this with the glass half full, the week where Mythic Plus fully unlocks, so the week where the item level of Mythic Plus fully unlocks, where the item level goes all the way up to 236 item level, farmable, is going to be in Fortified. So that's at least a good thing. Now, the other thing about Mythic Plus that we just mentioned about the score, the pushing, worth mentioning, Raider.io is adapting to the score of Blizzard. So basically they are going to be doing the similar thing to what Blizzard is doing. So as I pointed out before, most people that were already using Raider.io are going to continue use Raider.io simply because it offers you more information than what the default UI is going to tell you. But the score is basically going to be the same. So you are going to see the two different keys and your score is now going to depend with the same calculations that Blizzard is doing. And the scoring is actually very simple. You take your two highest keys for each fortified and tyrannical. The highest of the two, and if they are even, it's based on the time, is going to be worth 150% of the points, and the lowest of the two is going to be worth 50% of the points. So in total, it means that one is going to be worth 25% respective to the other. If this sounds confusing to you, this is the actual example. These are 2 plus 17 keys of Mist of Tir-Nasyth. You can see they are almost identical in score, with one being 70 seconds faster than the other. So when you go and look at the actual combined score, you can see that the slightly faster one, the Tyrannical one, is worth 205 points, which is 150% of 136, and you can see that the other one, the slightly slower one, is only worth 68 points, which is 50% of 136. Once you take the 150% and the 50% scores and you combine them, that's going to be your Mythic Plus score for that key. Which is also why the highest key, completing the highest key, is much more important than your alternate score, because it's going to be worth much more. It's going to be worth way more points. I have seen some pretty funny comments about this, you know, some people losing 3, 4, 500 score because it turns out they had much fewer tyrannical keys completed than fortified keys, so their score dropped by quite a lot. For example, you could have situations like this one, which is, you know, expected, pretty nice. You know, the score would be just about the same, it's fine. And then you also have situations like this one. Yes, this is pretty much what is going to happen to a lot of people. They are going to be reminded that they have skipped Tyrannical for an entire season because they had no incentive, they had no bonus, they had no reason to be doing Tyrannical. Tyrannical is harder than Fortified. It's more of a struggle and a hassle to find good parties that can deal with bosses in Tyrannical. So let's just skip it and just do Fortified. This season is not going to be like that anymore. This season you will have a major incentive in doing Tyrannical because now you will get your score weighed on Tyrannical as well. Not just with the normal Blizzard UI, the normal Blizzard, the official Blizzard score, but also it's going to come from Raider.io as well. So basically, whichever way you want to look at your score, the official one or the third-party site one, you will still have to deal with managing Tyrannical. Some people will say this is good, some people will say this is healthy because it's going to give you incentive to play on every week. It's not going to create push weeks and AFK weeks as much as it did in Season 1, because now Tyrannical weeks are also going to be worth using and worth doing, regardless of whether or not you think it's harder than Fortified. Other people will not be too happy with it, because even though Blizzard is putting more importance in Tyrannical, they are putting more reasons, more incentives for you to jump into Tyrannical, they still have not made Tyrannical more enjoyable. They still have not made it more fun, more engaging. It's just bosses hit harder and take much longer to kill, which is quite annoying, especially when you are supposed to be spending most of your time in the key defeating trash mobs, and then you have to actually deal with the hardest part of the dungeon, which is a boss, which is completely different than the entirety of the rest of the dungeon. Personally, I am a fence sitter on this one because I can see and agree with both parties. I am, in fact, glad that Tyrannical now has more value, that there is more reason now to do Tyrannical. I do believe that many people who ditched Tyrannical and ignored or avoided Tyrannical didn't do so just because they thought they had no incentive, just because they thought they had no reason to, but also because they suck dick at dealing with bosses on Tyrannical, because they get exposed in managing mechanics on boss fights on Tyrannical. They have been used to just farm fortified and more or less get away with failing stuff, mismanaging boss mechanics, and generally speaking, on Tyrannical they get exposed for the frauds that they are, so they don't enjoy it because of it, not really because they think it's more boring or more tedious. You know, that's just the facade, the excuse they use, but the reality is much different. At the same time, I also agree, it's still not very fun to do Tyrannical, mostly due to the length. I would be perfectly okay with the difficulty of the bosses if they more or less kept the same duration of the encounter, of the fight. I would have been much more happy to see Tyrannical, meaning bosses doing more damage and having an extra mechanic, for example, an extra ability, or maybe just an extra effect to the mechanics and abilities they already have. Pretty much like going from Heroic to Mythic raiding, rather than just making them bullet sponges, basically, making them meat shields. So I do also see that part of the argument, but overall, I do still think it's a positive change. The better participation in Mythic Plus when it comes to Tyrannical weeks. The other thing worth mentioning, not related to Mythic Plus, so we are moving away from Mythic Plus, is the one-time Covenant Rejoin that Blizzard is adding to this new patch. With the announcement of a few hours ago, it was pointed out, considering all of the recent balance changes and new rewards like Covenant mounts, we are creating a hotfix, which we expect to go live in the next couple of days, that will reset the Betrayer status for all players who previously left any Covenants. This will be one-time renovation to your relationship with your old Covenant, intended to make it easier for you to return and pick back up where you left off with them. This basically means you can skip the quests, you know, the grinding, rejoin the Covenant quest that you have to do, and just do it with one click. So it just saves you a minor amount of time. The reason for the Covenant rejoins and the Covenant swaps, the time waste of doing that, is the fact that you lose all the anima, is the fact that you have to regrind all of the Renown. So giving you a leg up on being able to return for free isn't really, you know, the main issue of the time sink, of the time you have to spend in this Covenant swapping. It's basically like having to take a 30-minute drive to the airport to then fly for 15 hours across the world, and Blizzard is telling you, oh no, we are bringing the plane to you, you don't have to drive. Thank you. You just saved me 30 minutes. Now I have to do the 15-hour flight. So, thank you, I guess. Lastly, we are gonna close the video with another couple of PSAs for people who haven't kept up with all of the announcements and all of the news related to the patch. So just to remind you, just to remind everyone, Renown 44. So next week is when a bunch of stuff is going to become available that you might have heard was coming in this patch. This means flying in the old zones of Shadowlands. I mean, old zones, the current normal zones of Shadowlands, Bastion, Maldraxxus, Revendreth, and Ardenweald. That is going to happen at Renown 44 when you get the next chapter of the storyline available, which isn't right now, as well as being able to send Soul Ash to your characters, account bound, being able to trade 300 Soul Ash for 250 and then send it to whoever you want. All of this is going to become available at Renown 44. Also, just in case someone is still wondering, it's going to take you 2 more weeks. So, the start of the second week of Mythic Raiding. The release of Heroic Raiding is going to be the second week. The release of Mythic Raiding is going to be the third week. The second week of Mythic Raiding, the fourth week, is going to be Renown 48, which is when you will unlock the Covenant-specific legendaries available for you to craft. That is also, by the way, going to be about the time where you will have enough Soul Cinders to craft one of these legendaries at rank 5 anyways. So if you were planning on crafting one of those, you would still have had to wait your Soul Cinders to be able to craft them in the first place. Now, with this list of news and with list of PSAs for the ignorant community that had to be spoon-fed, all of this stuff we can stop. Congratulations, if you already knew all of this, you're getting 74 points on my final score for the season rating that you're gonna get. And for now, we can stop. I have to go and just half-assedly grind some stuff in Korthia while I watch something else on my other monitor. I guess that's really compelling content. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you want to support the channel, subscribe to my newsletter coming right at your mailbox every month, or just subscribe to the actual YouTube channel, whichever you prefer. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, good news. Good news, everyone. The weather report today is windy and cloudy. I am actually doing fine right now.